in this session, we are going to discuss very basic concepts in logic. So therefore, with this session, you can consider as an introductory session for logic, right? So here we are going to discuss that what is logic, okay, and what is an argument, okay, and validity and truth. So there we discuss validity and invalidity, okay, and also we discuss sound, unsound validity, okay, sound, unsound validity, and also logic as a abstract science, logic as a abstract science, right? Okay, so these basic concepts will provide a basic knowledge and also will provide a basic fundamental terms just for you to understand logic, right? Okay, then these concepts you can just note down the things that you are going to study in this introductory session, right? Okay. Okay, in first concepts that what is logic? This word in English, logic. This word actually came from Greek or Latin word logos, right? So what is the meaning of this term logos? This word came from Greek. I told you just now this word came from Greek or Latin. And what is the meaning of this term? So the meaning of the logos can be sentence or a discourse, or it can be a reason, or it can be ratio. So these translations are not enough exactly that you to understand what is the meaning of logic, but you know that according to the meaning of that logos, so it came just logic as something reasoning, right? Okay, then you can answer that when someone asks you that what is logic, you can briefly speak like logic is a study about reasoning. Logic is a study about arguments, and logic really concerned about arguments. Okay, so a little professionally, little bit professionally, you can say logic is study about the principles of correct reasoning, right? In your life full of decisions, and always you know that making decisions, and those decisions can be critical decisions in your life sometimes, and when you are making those decisions, it can be you know it can be sometimes making contradictions, right? And basically when you are making some kind of arguments, you are providing uh, some evidence to derive the conclusions in your arguments. So in this evidence should be properly organized just to derive the correct conclusion. So if you really concern that logic is about this argument, then you can define it. Logic is the science of correct reasoning. Okay, then briefly you can say logic is the science of correct thinking, right? So as advanced level students, you will have to study several kind of definitions of logic. So I'll organize several definitions here. The first one is logic is a science of correct thinking, and I'll write here another one also. Logic is a science of correct thinking, right? And next one we can say logic is the science of logic is the science of correct logic is the science of the study of correctness, right? Correctness of uh, correctness of incorrect reasoning, correctness of incorrect of reasoning, right? Okay, we can take this as a second one. And the third one I can say logic, I can say logic is a systematic inquiry. Logic is a systematic inquiry. Logic is a systematic inquiry. Logic is a systematic inquiry into the deductive deductive process of thinking, right? Okay, so these kind of simple definitions enough for you to understand what is logic. So when you are concerned about these definitions, then you know logic really concern about reasoning. So logic study about correct reasoning, right? So basically you can define now logic as a science of correct reasoning, or a logic as a science of correct thinking. I know these definitions will provide some kind of meaning about the term that logic, but actually what is logic is just to define the concept is actually quite a controversial matter, because there are many kind of definitions that logic, so we do not have any exact form of definitions in logic, right? So then now basically you can understand logic really concern about arguments. Okay, so you can basically you can come to the common way, common definitions for a logic. Logic really can consider as a science of really concern about reasoning, right? Okay, so then you have another question now. If logic really study about an argument, then what is an argument, right? Argument. What is an argument then? What is an argument? Argument. So in day-to-day life, when I'm asking that what is an argument, then you can just envisage something that's some kind of a statement between two people, and then one just try to order it against to the other party. So some kind of thing like that. But actually, an argument in logic totally the different. It means the same statement actually, but we define it much organizedly, right? Okay, so the basic argument we always consider in logic, I'll write here: all men are mortal. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal, right? Okay, so in this argument, you can understand the first two statement. So what are these two statement? The first two statement. The first two statement you can consider as premises. Okay, premises. The argument normally you construct at home with your parents. You organize these premises as evidence for your conclusions, right? So as example, I can say you just argue with your parents that I need a mobile phone. So I need a mobile phone because I have these reasons. The first one is I just want to chat with my friends, right? And also I have to involve with some group discussions in my school, in my college, and also teacher sending so many notes through WhatsApp, especially these days. So I have to download those notes and at the same time take a printout. So these things I actually missed. So you can organize here several sections, and then finally you can say, therefore, I need a mobile phone. So I need a mobile phone is the conclusion. So you organize these facts as a positive, as a affirmative forms of your argument as evidence, like you organize your premises. So you derive these conclusions as a correct conclusions through these premises. So that's what you study basically in logic. Right. In this, the argument that I provided you in this whiteboard, that all men are mortal, Socrates is man and Socrates is mortal. These two statements, that all men are mortal and Socrates is man, can be concerned as premises, right? Premises, right? This very good word, premises. And then last one, therefore Socrates is mortal. What is that? Therefore, the same thing I write here, therefore. This is the symbol that you use mostly. And then Socrates is mortal. Therefore, Socrates is mortal, right? This Socrates is mortal, I derived this statement through these two premises. All men are mortal and Socrates is mad. Right. So when you're concerned about these two premises, all men are mortal, Socrates is man, so therefore Socrates is mortal. This conclusion I correctly derived through these premises. Right. It means according to these two premises, my conclusion is valid. Right, my conclusion is correct. So Socrates is mortal, because when I read that two premises, those two premises, that all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, so exactly I can say Socrates is mortal even if I close this conclusion. Do you understand? So if I close this conclusion that all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, even without that conclusion, I can just envisage that would be exactly that Socrates is mortal, because these two premises provide exactly that Socrates is mortal. So then my conclusion is not extended rather than the premises, right? So my conclusion cannot be wider than the premises. So what that premises are provide, exactly the conclusion is should be, because I derived this conclusion through these premises deductively. It's not something extra about the outside world, so I exactly have to based on the given premises. So according to my premises, my conclusion should be correct. If it is correct, then it's valid. According to my premises, my conclusion is not correct, it's invalid. I think you can understand. So I'll take the invalid arguments. It will provide very good evidence for you to understand how invalid works. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. So if it is invalid, then the conclusion should be not according to premises. So then according to premises, my conclusion should be exactly Socrates is mortal. But I'm going to write here Socrates is not mortal. So now you can see my conclusion is exactly not according to premises. So therefore it's invalid. The first argument, my conclusion is exactly according to premises, it's correct. So therefore it's valid, right? I'm not telling anything about truth or a falsity, right? I'm discussing with you about validity and invalidity. So validity and invalidity can be just based on according to the premises, right? And so if my argument is valid, it means I derived the conclusion according to premises, right? So validity and invalidity can be therefore considered as a logical properties of an arguments. Okay, so you know that the first we identified these forms as an arguments. Arguments are consisted of premises and the conclusion, right? Arguments are consist of premises and the conclusions. Otherwise you can say arguments are set of claims, right? Set of statements. All men are mortal and Socrates is a man and therefore Socrates is mortal. So now even you can understand a valid argument and invalid argument, right? So validity is coming to correct conclusions according to premises. If it is not, it means your conclusion is not correct according to premises, it's invalid, right? Okay, I'll take this argument again. This argument, and also I'll take another argument. All quadrupeds have horns, rabbit is a quadruped, therefore rabbit has horns. What do you think about this argument? I know you are not comfortable with this because that you know exactly rabbit doesn't have horns. Right, I'll tell you. So what do you think about these two arguments, right? You think like the first one is valid, the second one is invalid because rabbit doesn't have horns. That's how you think maybe. Right. Can't you see that Socrates is mortal? Right? Socrates is mortal. So this conclusion is exactly correct according to these two premises. Because that premises are properly mentioned that all men are mortal and Socrates is a man. So according to these two premises, that conclusion is exactly correct. That Socrates conclusion is exactly not correct here. I'm sorry, I accidentally entered that not mortal. So we can remove that and find out the correct one. Wait 1 second, please. Right. So now you can see according to the premises that my conclusion is exactly correct. Right. So what we has derived this conclusion exactly correct. Because that all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, so therefore Socrates should be mortal exactly. So this conclusion I deductively derived through these two premises. This Socrates is a man is the conclusion that I derived through these premises deductively, logically. Otherwise, according to the form of the premises, this conclusion is valid. But the second one, all quadrupeds have horns, rabbit is a quadruped, therefore rabbit has horns. Can't you see this conclusion also a valid conclusion, right? So rabbit doesn't have horns, that's something about truth or falsity, but logically this conclusion is correctly derived through these two premises. Because can't you see that the premises are properly mentioned that all quadrupeds have horns, rabbit is a quadruped. So then if rabbit is a quadruped, then rabbit doesn't have horns exactly. So then you can mention that this conclusion is exactly derived correctly these two premises, because I derived this conclusion logically, otherwise you can say deductively, right? According to the logical form of the premises, that conclusion we can accept as a valid conclusion. But I know that you are not comfortable because you know that rabbit doesn't have horns. Okay, I can support like this. I can help you like this. You know, the first statement in this valid one, that all men are mortal. So that statement is true, right? The second statement you can see that Socrates is a man, that also true. The last statement that Socrates is mortal, that also true. All the statements I can consider as a true statement. So then these kind of arguments we concern sound valid argument. Sound valid argument, right? Sound valid argument. Because that all the premises are true at the same time that all the statements can consider as true, right? When an argument is valid, at the same time when it is true, it means that all the statements became true, then it's called sound valid argument, right? Now you can see when you are concerned about the second argument that all quadrupeds have horns is not true, it's false, because there are some quadrupeds they don't have horns, right? Even the rabbit, right? Then the second statement, rabbit is a quadruped, that is true, that statement is true, rabbit is a quadruped, so we all know that, right? So now the third statement, rabbit has horns, oh my god, that is false. So you can see the one statement is true, other two statements are false. But you can understand rabbit has horns, deductively valid argument. So now you can say argument is valid, but at the same time the premises are not true. So these kind of arguments are concerned as unsound valid argument, right? Unsound valid argument. Okay, right. So now I'm going to give you an exercise. So you have to create a one sound valid argument and one unsound valid argument, right? One sound valid argument and one unsound valid argument, right? So you can do this just right now. Okay, stop the video and do this and get back to the class, right? You can send me your answers through my email address. I can provide my email address. You can send me your answer through email address, right? I can check it and send back you, right? So these two exercises you have to do now. Just create a one sound valid argument. Do it yourself. Don't search through the internet, and do it yourself. One unsound valid argument. You can do these two arguments and send it to me, right? Okay. So these concepts are exactly properties of arguments. These are properties of arguments. Okay, arguments. Right. And at the same time, I'm telling you, what is this truth? Truth and falsity. Right? Truth, truth and falsity. What is this? So these are properties of what? These are properties of statements. Otherwise you can say propositions, right? Propositions, right? Okay, so these two things are very important for you to understand further sections in logic. Without these two concepts, even you can't understand anything in logic. So these are fundamental concepts in logic, right? Okay, so then you can understand now what is logic. Logic is really concerned about reasoning, and also you can understand an argument. You can define an argument, and also you can identify an argument. You know the basic features of an argument. Arguments are consist of the premises and the conclusion. Arguments can be valid and arguments can be invalid, and also this validity can be divided into two categories: sound validity and unsound validity, right? And I gave an exercise for you to complete as a homework. So sound valid argument and unsound valid argument. And also you can understand now this validity and invalidity are properties of an argument. Those are attribute to the argument, the concept. And also this truth and falsity are properties of a statement, and also you can say propositions, right? So these two basic concepts are very important for you to understand logic. Another thing I'm going to tell you, what is this? Why that people concerned that logic as a abstract science? Hmm? Right? Why is this? Okay, so logic, if logic concern as an abstract science, first of all, so you have to understand what is the meaning of this term abstract. What is the meaning of this term abstract? What do you think? Right. So abstract. So this is one of the characteristic of a deductive logic, because that abstract means when we are studying about the facts without any relations to the concrete experience. It means without any relations to the uh, empirical facts, without any relations to the real world details, that factual components. So mathematics is one of the subject that we can concern as abstract science, because 2 plus 2 equal 4. So these concepts are abstract forms, right? These concepts are abstract forms because these concepts developed as some kind of ideological forms. Ideological forms are abstract forms that we really can't experience within our real world, like within our five senses. So these concepts doesn't form within our sense. So therefore, we do not have any concrete experience. The concepts like 2 plus 2 equal 4. So why then we consider it as logic also as abstract science? When we are concerned in deductive logic that P implication Q, right, and also the deductive valid argument what we have studied before, that all men are mortal and Socrates is a man, so therefore Socrates is mortal. So these type of concepts, right, and also can consider as a abstract form, because that I made this conclusion as a valid conclusion that Socrates is mortal. I did not concern anything about that, whether that's whether the outside world, because I do not want to concern about the outside world. I really derived these conclusions according to premises. I only concern the logical structure of the premises, nothing beyond that. So therefore my conclusion can be valid or invalid. So that's why we really concern it as abstract form, right? So now you can understand logic as an abstract science, because when we consider the characteristic of logic, it really evidence that the abstract concerns, that abstract forms are there, because the abstract means that when we are studying the facts and the content without relations to the any concrete experience in outside world. At the same time, we can consider logic as a formal science, because formal science means the science really we concern, the really we come to the conclusions, that we derive the conclusions to the premises without based on the context. We really concern the logical form of the given argument, right? The logical form of the premises. So therefore, we just pay attention we really don't pay attention to the information. Otherwise, the details, the context of the argument, we really give our attention only for the logical form of the argument. So that's what that really mentioned, that logic as an abstract science. Okay. So now, so what are the other kind of abstract sciences that you understand? So you can give, you can just give a comment section. So if you have any other sciences that you really concern as abstract science, so give it in the comment section so I can answer if it is correct or wrong, right? So if you, as example, that we can concern mathematics as abstract science, right? Okay. So these are the very basic concepts that you have to give your attention just to understand what is logic. So in this introductory session, you understood what is logic and also what is an argument, and also you understood what is validity and invalidity, and also you can understand the difference between sound and unsound valid, right? And also now you can understand the context and also the scope of the subject about the content. You really know now logic exactly can concern as abstract science. You know what is the meaning of the abstract, right? So these are the things that you really consider as a fundamental uh, terms, like the fundamental introductory session for a logic. So after this you can just start about the terms and the propositional explanation about the basic logic. So then next after the basic session, then I'll meet you to the next session as soon as possible. Thank you very much for the watching.